Good morning students. Today we are going to learn new concept of object oriented programming language, that is classes and object. Basically, object oriented programming language contains the concepts of classes and objects. So let us start. Today we are going to learn, that is what are objects, how these objects are created and different examples of objects. Then classes, what is the definition of classes, how classes are created, how classes are used in programming language, and next, that is class declaration, creating objects, constructors and its types, and destructors. Let us start with the concept of classes and objects. Classes and objects are the terms of object oriented programming language C++. Let us take an example, as you all are in computer engineering 4th semester. So you are studying in a class. A class contains number of students. There may be 60, 40, 30 students in a class. So if we are going to consider that, then it means student number of students combinedly known as a class. So if we consider a particular student, then that particular student becomes an object that have entity and behavior. So a class is an expanded concept of a data structure. Instead of holding only data, it can hold both data and function. Recently in procedural language, we have learned about the structure. What is structure? Structure is a combination or holding of different types of data, but it only concentrate on the data. How these data operate is excluded in this. So in case of class, we are holding both data and function that operate on that data. Plus in case of classes, we are concentrating on the security of the data, as the security of data need to be very useful. So let us start with the concept of objects. An object is an entity that has state, behavior and identity. So let us take an example, as you all are in a class of computer engineering 4th semester. If we can talk about a particular student, let us say maybe Amanpreet, something other name. So that Amanpreet has state their own behavior and identity by his father's name, mother's name, where she live. These all are her attributes. So human being is an entity or a class, and if we are talking about a particular human being, then that becomes an object. So objects are used to model real world entities. Real world entities, as human being or human species is a real world entities. So we can find these examples in our daily life. For example, book is an entity and a book is an object. Clock is an object. Apple is an object, etc. So if we consider about an family, in a family each person has its own entity, state, behavior and identity. Mother plays roles her own, child plays her own role. So there are different roles and different identities provided to each of the family members. So let us start. What is object? Object contains attributes and their operations. Let us take an example of dog. Dog has 4 legs, two eyes, one mouth, 2 ears. So what he can do with legs? He can walk, he can uh, run, uh, dog can eat with mouth. So these are the common operation which he can perform with their different schedules. So attributes are 4 legs, 2 eyes, one mouth. These all are attributes. But if we consider about a particular dog with his name, then that becomes an entity. So every object have its attributes and different operations. These operations are operated with the help of the attributes of an object. So let us start with the concept of classes. A class is a group of objects with the same attributes and common behavior. Same attributes, same as a dog. If we consider about the class of dog, every dog has 4 legs, 1 tail, 1 mouth. These all are same attributes. And common behavior, when you call upon any dog, he waves his tail, and these all are common behavior. He can walk with his legs, he can talk, he can bark. These are common behavior of a dog. A representation of objects and the set of operations that can be applied to such objects. So we can define attributes. After defining the attributes, we can apply the operations which are performed with the help of attributes. So in other terms, we can also define class also refers to the collection of data and functions that operate on that data or member data. So class is a concept of where we can combine the data and functions together. The member function of that class operate only on the member data of that class. No outer function can access the data of that class. Let us take an example. We all have our private rooms, but when outsider comes, your all the necessity, all the necessities are locked in cupboard. No one can access your necessity, gold, even whatever you placed in privacy. So classes also refers to the data and function. Data that is to be secured, and function that to be operate on that data. So what are the features of class? It combines the data and functions in a single unit. So in previous procedural language, we have learned the structure. Structure is only the collection of different data types. So how these data types can be operated in a function are ignored. How these data types are secured are ignored. So feature of class is that we can combine data and function in a single unit in a single. Let us take an example of capsule, medicine capsule. Capsule contains both the medicines. One part contains different and another part contains different, but combinedly it comes the capsule. So encapsulation terms comes in the classes and objects. Encapsulation means where we can encapsulate the data and function in a single unit. So variables of class are the objects or instance of a class. If we declare a variable of a class, that becomes the object of a class. So variables and function inside the class are known as data members. Variables which are defined inside a class are called data members, and the function which are defined inside a class are called the member function of a class. So let us start with the class declaration part. How we can declare class declaration in C++ programming language. So class declaration part specification has two parts. One is class declaration and second one is class function definition. So as we already know, class is a combination of data and function. In case of class declaration, we can only define which data variables are to be used and which functions are to be performed. In class function definition, we can define what are the function definition or what is the function body of that data functions. So syntax of class declaration is start with the keyword class. Class is a keyword which is understood by the compiler that we are going to create a new class, that is a user defined class. After writing the class keyword, we can define the class name. Class name would be any name which is provided by the user. So curly braces start, that is, then comes the private scope, then colons, data members. Data members are always private because we want to provide the security to the data members. So maximum time in class, data members are private or protected. Then member functions, which those member function which we want not to access by another class. And next one is protected. Protected behave as same as private, but there is one difference that the difference will be talked later. that is data members and member functions again are private to the class. Non-member function cannot access the data members. Then comes the public scope. In case of public scope, whatever the data members and functions are declared can be accessed by any other function outside of the class. So embed functions, and then whenever a class definition is over, class definition is over always with the semicolon. After completing close curly brace, then semicolon. Semicolon indicates that it is the end of the class. If we ignore the semicolon, then it will return a syntax error in our program. So class declaration needs a keyword class. What the function of the class, the keyword class that specify to compiler about creation of class, that we are going to create a user defined class. The body of class is enclosed in curly braces and terminated by a semicolon. Terminated by a semicolon, that indicates the end of the class. Whenever a semicolon indicates, the compiler understands that it is the end of a class. So there can be three sections in a class. One is private, protected, public and protected. So what are these sections? We will explain private and protected section. So C++ gives us the unique ability of data hiding with the help of these two sections. As we already know that object oriented programming language has the features of data hiding, that is, it provides the data security. To provide the data security, we use the two keywords or two sections, that is private and protected. Whatever the data members are declared in the section of private and protected are hide from outside the world. Data in these two sections can't be accessed by any other class or member function. The later on classes or void main or any other global function can't access the data of a class. By default, member of a class are private. If we can't define any scope, then by default compiler will understand that is all the member function data members are declared are as private sections. So in case of public section, public as name implies, public data functions are accessible from outside the class. Whatever the data members and public functions are defined will be accessed by any person or any function outside the class. Let us take an example. You all have a private room. The things that are patterned on front will be accessed, any person can access, but the things you are put in the cupboard and locked it are not accessed by any other persons. So any function can access or pass message to an object which is declared in public section. So we can access the public data, but we can't access the private and protected data. So access limits of a class members are: access specifiers are public, private and protected. Access permissions to the classes, class, subclass and object. In case of public section, a class specifier can access the data and function. A subclass can access that data and function, and object also access. But in case of private, only the class in which that data member and functions are defined can access the data and member function. Not subclass can access, not even a object can access the class members. In case of private, protected class members as private, the data members and function defined in a class are accessed in a class and a subclass. Subclass which inherits the property of a class, which is the concept of inheritance, but the data members and functions are cannot be accessed by the object of any other class. So let us take an example. Let us say we are going to create a new class, that is class. Class is a keyword, then give a name. Let us say it is a ABC, any name given to a class, curly braces start. Then we have defined int a comma b. The a and b are two integer variables that is declared with integer. 2 bytes are allocated to each variable. Here we have not specified any section. As we already know, if we can not specify any section, by default it is a private section. So a and b variables are hide from the outside functions, it is a private. Then comes the public. In case of public, we define the two functions, that is void get data and void display data. These two member functions can be accessed outside class because it is declared under the section of public. So let us curly brace close and then semicolon. Semicolon indicates that it is the end of a class. So if we consider class ABC have data members these are A and B, and the data functions, that is get data and display data. Get data and display data only executed on the data of A and B. It can get the value of A and B or display the whatever the value of A and B. Next one is declaring object. As we already know that a object is a variable or instance of a class, or a object is a real time entity which has state, behavior and identity. So variables are declared in the same way as in structure in procedural language. Objects are declared in the main function using syntax. First of all, we have to define the class name. Class name should be the name of the class for which we are going to create objects. Class name, then variable 1. How many objects we want to declare, we can declare here, and by the end semicolon. So objects can also declared outside the main function. How? Class, let us take an example of the objects declaration in the main function. Let us say we are going to create a new class, that is student. Each student have a roll number that is of integer type. Each student have some marks of the previous results. Then in public sections we declare two functions, that is void get data and void display the data, and then we terminated class by the semicolon. Then we come to the main function. As we already know that the execution of a program always starts from the main. So student S1, S2. Here student is a class name, class which contains the data members roll number and marks, and data function, that is get data and display data. Then S1 and S2 both are objects or variables of a class student or instance of a class student. Object declaration in the class. Let us see another example. Say class date, which are class date is basically purpose to store the members of a date. Let us say we have declared day, month, year, and then in this example, as we all know that public section, in case of public section we have declared day, month and year. These three are variables, but these are declared in the public section that can be accessed by outside of a class member function. So in the last, when the curly braces close, we have declared two objects, that is d1, d2, then semicolon ends. That means date has contained two objects, that is d1 and d2. Means before ending the class we can declare the objects at the end of the curly braces. Assessing class members. Now we have learned that we can create classes which contains the data members and data function. How these data members and data functions can be assessed. So class members can be assessed using dot operator or member assess operator. Dot operator basically used to assess the data and the data member and the data function. The syntax for assessing data member is, first of all we have to define the object name, whichever object is declared, then dot, that is member assess operator, then data member. After that the compiler will understand that this data member belongs to a particular class for which the object is created. The syntax for again assessing the member function is object name dot, that is member assess operator, function name and then we pass, if it contains say arguments, we can pass the actual arguments. So here we can call a function, we can perform a calling to a function of a member of a class. So let us say we are going to assign the values to data members of a class. We started with the hash include iostream.h, that is input output stream.h, conio console input output. Let us start with the main function. As we already know, the execution of a program starts always with the main function. So class date public, int day, int month, int year. In class date we have declared three variables, day, month and year. These are under public section so that outside function can access that data. So let us start date 1, date d1. d1 is an object of a class date. So d1 dot day dot, that is member access operator, and day is a member of that class, is equal to 14. Let us say 14th of then assign the month value to the month, that is d1 dot month. d1 is object of class date, month is data member. So we can access through the member access operator. d1 dot month is equal to 2 and d1 dot year is equal to 2000, that is year is again the member of the class and d1 is object. So cout date is d1 dot day, we can display the value of day, that is 14. d1 dot month, we can display the value of month, year and end line. So when we going to execute the program, the output will be date is 14 to 2000. As we specify, date is d1 dot day, d1 dot day has assigned a value 14, 14 is display, then backslash, then d1 dot month, d1 dot month has assigned a value that is 2, then 2 is displayed, d1 dot year, d1 dot year has assigned a value that is 2000 and 2000 is displayed. End of line, then get ch, when we enter any next character the execution will be stopped. Next is functions definitions, how we can define the functions of a class. The member function can be defined in two ways. Number one is inside the class and number two is outside the class. Let us start with the member function declaration inside the class. Example, let us take an example of class ABC. We have declared two variables, that is A and B, without providing any scope. That means by default it is a private data members. So in case of public section, we are providing void get data, then start defining the function of the function body, then enter the names of A and B or enter the values of A and B, then see in A and B the value will be entered. So in case display data, we can display the value, whatever the value we entered, we can display it on the screen. So by the semicolon, that indicates the end of the class. That is the concept of to declare the member function inside a class. Now member function declaration outside the class. Syntax is return type. Return type is the function's return type. Whatever the value function is going to return, firstly define that. Then class name. The class name, the function refers to which class, that class name should be specified. Then scope resolution operator and then function name and parameter list. Return type is the type of value which is returned by that function, and class is the name of the class of that member function constitutes its part. Scope resolution operator. Scope resolution operator is basically used to indicate the compiler that we are going to define a function which belongs to a particular class. Then function name and parameter list is the name of the function, same name which is defined in the class, and whatever the parameters we are going to pass are described here. So significance of scope resolution operator. The scope resolution operator in C++ used to define the already declared in member function of the class. already declared member function or the functions which have prototypes in the class, if we want to define the body of that function, we use the scope resolution operator. So resolution operator is placed between the front of the variable name, then the global variable is affected. If no resolution operator is placed between the local variable is affected. For example, class ABC, int AB, again same example, public, we have two functions, that is void get data and void display data. Function class definition ends here. So void is the return type of the get data function, and display data function has the return type, that is void, and class name is ABC. So let us start. Void, first we have to define the return type of the function, that is void, then class name is ABC, then we use the scope resolution operator, then get data is our function, then define the enter the values of A and B. And next one is again void is the return type of the function, member function, that is display data, then class name is ABC, then scope resolution operator, display data, and then we can display the values of A and B. So we have defined the class, how classes are created, how objects are created. Let us make a program which is used to make a calculator using classes. Let us say start with hash include iostream.h. Hash is a preprocessor directive which includes the iostream.h files in the main program. Then next one is console input output.h class calculator. Let us say class is a keyword, calculator is a class name. So in this case we have defined under the private section, we have defined the data members int x and int y. X and y are the integer variables, both contains the data like integer variables, integer values, and both have the memory space of 2 bytes. So we have in under public section we have void get data function. In case of get data function, we can assign the values to x and y. Next we have the display. In case of display, we can display the value of x, y, even function sum, we can find out the difference and display the difference value, multiplication and division, the basic operations that can be performed by a calculator. So in case of sum, let us say int sum. In sum we are finding the sum of two integer variables, so it can return the value of integer type. So here we define the return type of a function is integer, return x plus y, whatever the value of x and y is added and the value is returned to wherever it is called. So similarly int difference function is performed. In this case, if we going to find out the difference between two integer variables, the output will be integer. So we have defined the return type of function is integer. So return x minus y. So next is int multiplication. In case of multiplication, again the multiplication of two integer variables is again integer. So we have defined the return type of a function is integer. In case of division, again the division of two integer variable is again integer. So we have defined the return type of division function is again integer. So here our class calculator ends. So in case of void main, as we already know that the execution of a program starts from the main function, we have defined the function object, that is C1, as calculator C1. Calculator is a class, C1 is a variable of that class, that means object. Now we can access the values or member function of a class using the object and member access operator, that is dot. In first line C1 dot get data, whenever the C1 dot get data executed, the get data function is called and the x and y values are assigned. C1 dot display, whenever the display function is invoked, the values of x and y, even multiplication, division, subtraction and sum values are displayed. So output is enter the two numbers, because we have firstly called the get data function. So enter the two numbers. We have entered 14 and 7. X is equal to 14, the first value goes to first variable, that is x, and second value goes to second variable, that is y. So x is equal to 14 and y is equal to 7. The sum of these two these two variables is 21, difference is 7, multiplication is 98, and division is equal to 2. So we can perform the multiple function within a class with a